We want to say hello to everybody out there in radio, internet, and TV land. And I'm more than a little honored to be able to interview a young man today who has played a role in the phenomenal development of our community socially, economically, of course, educationally, politically, civically, and spiritually. So I guess you'll say, well, now what kind of individual can have that kind of impact in all of those areas in our community? Well, I'll tell you what kind. The president of Mercer University, in the person of Mr. William, and a lot of people call him Bill, Underwood. How you doing, sir?
I'm great, Alex. It's great to be here with you in this place. It's a privilege.
And it's great to have you. And the reason I'm humble and excited is because of all the things, all of the positive things that Mercer is doing in our community that's making, watch me, a measurable difference. You know, it can be measured how Mercer is impacting the community. But we want to begin. We told a couple of personal stories before starting the interview. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Texas and lived most of my life in Texas, but went to middle school and high school in Michigan and attended school at Michigan State and then law school and went back to Texas and wound up here.
Good.
I have two wonderful children, a daughter, Jessica, who's a lawyer in Dallas, Texas, and a son, William, who lives in Rhode Island.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you are a lawyer. How did you get an education? Did you ever practice?
I did. I practiced law in Dallas, Texas, and I was having a bad day one day, and Baylor University called me and asked me if I would join their law faculty. And because I was having a bad day, I said, well, that sounds pretty good. And that was in 1990, and I taught law school there for 15 years.
Well, I'm very, very glad that you decided to get into education because I'm sure that played a role in your coming to Mercer.
How did you get into education, Alex?
Well, I went to college. I went to Savannah State.
Right.
And when I finished, at the time, since we're going to be a little historical, one of the most respected, I'm going to date myself, but that's okay. I started out early. I went to college at 12. Just kidding. But at the time, teaching, and it still is, and I got great affinity for teaching, but it was one of the major occupations in the African American community that a person could do.
Sure.
So those people, individuals who aspired to be contributors and have a good job, etc., were teachers.
Yeah.
And I was one of them, but I'm so glad that I did because I really, and I still do it, for the juvenile justice system and some other entities, but I enjoy teaching.
Is there any teacher in your life that stands out as someone who had an especially inspiring impact on you?
George Espy,
Yeah.
who was my high school homeroom teacher, and he taught English.
Really?
And guess what I majored in when I went to college?
That's the way that works.
It is. So, and teaching and education are so important now in our community. And the reason that I really appreciate what Mercer is doing is because it's playing a significant role, not only in all those other areas with College Hill Corridor and all the other initiatives that are going on in our community, but educating our young people. And also with African Americans, as I told you, at the time when I finished high school, Mercer was not an option.
Yeah,
but I understand the kind of record that you have now as it relates to attracting diversity. So to see it transform from an institution where I was afraid to walk across the campus to an institution that would have people like Sam Hart and other Chester Faulkner and other individuals in the community who are not only educators over there, but who also helping to attract minority and other students. And I just applaud the university for that. And you got so many initiatives, so let's just talk about some of them. And I want to begin.
Before we do,
Go ahead.
let me just say that, you know, we aspire to be an impactful institution and really a great university. And you cannot be an impactful institution without having a diverse student body and a diverse faculty. You can't prepare young people for leadership in the 21st century unless you prepare them in a diverse environment. A racially diverse environment, a diverse environment in terms of economic background, in terms of social background, in terms of where they grew up. It's important for us to be that kind of institution because we can't do what we set out to do unless we are. And it's something we work hard at.
Well,
so thank you for mentioning it.
Yes, sir, and it's something that you've been successful at. I can't call the case in point. I can't call the young lady's name and she's going to be upset, but she's one of your students. And she had inquired to somebody, Geneva West, about wanting to volunteer in the community. And I met her last night. We have a business mixer every second Tuesday. I'm going to invite you to the next one over at Overtime. And I met her, but she called me and said, Mr. Habersham, I want to be a part of the community and I want to volunteer in the community. Her first name is Veronica, and I'll let you know her last name after we break. But, you know, and that just kind of shows, you know, what Mercer is doing in our community. And it shows the kind of impact and it shows the kind of effect that you are having and the kind of students that you are attracting, not only in the undergraduate institution, but also in the law school. So we've got so many things to talk about as it relates to the initiatives that are going on. But let me mention one thing to you that I'd like to ask you about, and that's collaboration. I mean, you know, look like you all got the key ingredient to being able to initiate activities and projects and pull the community together. Talk about some of those other entities that you collaborate with and your objectives and initiatives and what you do and, you know, what would be, because that's what we need more of, in my opinion, in this community is collaboration.
Well, I think you're right about that. I think, although I will say, I think Macon is turning the corner from being a place that had tremendous potential to being a place that has begun realizing that potential. And I see more people pulling together to make things happen in a positive way in Macon than I've seen before in my short 9-year history here. We do collaborate with lots of community groups and organizations, and we have to because to a large degree, as Macon goes, so goes Mercer. You cannot build a great, robust, vibrant university in a decaying, declining community. It's vitally important to our university that Macon be a community that's on the move, going in positive directions, becoming more vibrant, becoming more energetic, because that kind of community helps us attract talent to the university. And attracting talent is important to us. We have to attract talented young people who want to study and grow into tomorrow's leaders. We have to attract talented teachers to help prepare and inspire those talented young people. We need talented staff members to keep the place moving and afloat. And the better Macon is as a place to live, the easier it is for us to attract talent. That's why my predecessor, Kirby Godsey, began working on downtown revitalization a couple of decades ago, and we continue working on that through Newtown Macon, and anybody who visits downtown today can see the impact that those folks are having in rebuilding the urban core of the city. That's why we work with organizations like Historic Macon. I think the historic infrastructure of this community is not something that's just culturally important, it's something that's economically important to this community, because these great historic structures, like the one that we're in today, that tell wonderful stories, are something that distinguish us from much of the region. And it's a tremendous asset, and creative, talented, entrepreneurial young people want to be around places that have a story to tell. And the historical infrastructure of this community helps us tell that story. So Historic Macon plays a very important role. And we collaborate with them and partner with them. We've got a close collaboration with the city. With our current mayor, with his predecessor. During my tenure here, we've had close relationships with both of them because we want them to be successful. And it's important for us that they be successful. That will contribute to our success.
Well, what's on the horizon? I've seen some structures going up. I've seen some projects approved. So talk about some of the ongoing initiatives that the community should be familiar with, and many of them are. But it's just kind of exciting, and I'll tell you, this structure right behind City Hall, I mean, you must got magicians building that building, man. That thing is really going up, you know. Talk about that project and other projects and initiatives that are going on that Mercer is either spearheading or is associated with.
Well, the university is growing. And we're optimistic about the future, and we believe we're going to continue growing. And to accommodate that growth, we've got to have more places for students to live. We've got to have more places for students to eat. We have to have more places for students to play. And we have to have more places for students to work. So a lot of the new building that you see going on in this part of our community is designed to accommodate that growth in our student population. Behind the post office, there will be 200 new student housing spaces, and there will be restaurants and coffee shops and bars, all as a part of that complex. And it's taken an area that was, you know, an old abandoned strip shopping center, and it's completely revitalizing it. And I think the neighborhoods that surround it are going to begin rebuilding as a consequence of its presence. I mean, who wouldn't want to live in a place where you can walk down the street from your house and you can go to restaurants, you can go to coffee shops,
Go have a drink.
you can have a drink. I mean, who doesn't want to live in that kind of an environment?
Yeah.
And that's one of the great assets that we've got in Macon. So that's what's going on behind the post office. That'll be done by next July. We've just announced and gotten approval from planning and zoning to begin a $40 to $50 million new development on the south side of Mercer University Drive, right off of I-75. There will be 300 spaces of student housing going up there. There will be a 5-story parking garage to provide parking for the students, but also parking for the football games, which are across the street.
We're going to talk about that in a minute.
And then as a part of that complex, we're putting in a second hotel. We've got one hotel on campus, the Hilton Garden Inn, which has been remarkably successful. So we're going to put a second hotel in across the street from the Hilton Garden Inn, and one full-scale restaurant, and then 2 food courts as well. So there will be, you know, that's the first major economic investment in that area in 2 or 3 generations. You grew up over in that neighborhood.
Yeah, right.
So it's nice seeing private investors willing to put money back into the area of Macon, and I think it's going to provide a great gateway into our community.
A lot of institutions are losing population, but I understand that you've had some growth. You know, let's talk about that, and we're going to go back to the ongoing initiatives, but I think it's noteworthy that, you know, I mean, in these tough times, you know, the university is growing and the student, well, obviously, because you're building additional housing, but talk about that growth and what you think contributed to that.
Well, I mean, we are booming, and I think a lot of things have contributed to it. I think the resurgence that we're seeing in Macon makes Macon a more attractive place for people from out of state who are looking to come to school down here. I think sports has something to do with it. People see the sports success, and it raises the profile of the entire university.
Now, I know a lot of people question Mercer's football. You know, I'm sure that not everybody was in agreement with your starting a
They were
football
not.
program. While we're on that, I think it's noteworthy, and I don't know whether you saw Charles Richardson's editorial, you know, which was in the Telegraph maybe a couple of days ago.
His Sunday editorial
It
about
was
sports and
About
community.
sport, the role that sport, and he used Mercer's football as an example that things are not as bad as they seem, because in many instances, you know, people get together when they've got a common cause or when they got oneness of mind as it relates to some of that. Mercer's football games, you see all kinds of people sitting together, communicating with each other, and he thought that that was a reason not to predict doom and gloom, you know, for the community or for the country, because, you know, it's possible, you know, that we can live together, work together, make progress together, build our community together, get educated together, so forth and so on. So I want to, you know, I just don't think that, I think it would be an injustice that I've only been to one game. I'm glad I'm talking with the president. Maybe I can get up.
You need to come.
Get up in what you call that place with?
Okay, you got an invitation. Next game.
I can get, maybe I can get up there again.
Yeah.
I came there when Mike Ditka was there, and
Yeah.
I thought that was phenomenal. And you also had, what's the guy with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the coach?
Former Super Bowl coach
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
Tony Dungy.
Tony
with the
Dungy was
Indianapolis
there.
Colts, yeah.
You know, and it's just, you know, when you sit back to kind of think about all of the positive things that Mercer is doing in the community, then it's kind of mind-shattering. And again, I want to congratulate you and the university and all your staff for the role that you are playing in our community. We were talking about ongoing initiatives, and during the break, you know, you mentioned another initiative, and did you finish with across the street about what's going to go on?
I did,
there?
yes.
And we talked about behind Mercer, and talk a little bit though before we get to 2nd Street about the College Hill corridor, and because I come through there, and you know, sometimes I stop at General Joe's. You know, so talk about that complex. And I interviewed the young lady from Georgia Public Broadcasting last week. So talk about, you know, because you don't see too many instances of taking a segment of the community and growing it and attracting people in it. And not less important is the ability to include that diversity economically, racially, spiritually, and otherwise. So talk about that corridor and the role that it is playing in our community.
You know, you asked me why we were growing. I think that's one of the reasons we're growing. That was the whole College Hill corridor concept grew out of a student class project and class taught by a man named Peter Brown, who's been around Macon a long time and done great things. And these 4 students developed the outline of a plan to revitalize these historic neighborhoods between campus and downtown and create a district that would be attractive to a diverse array of creative, talented, entrepreneurial young people. And their plan was to do it by bringing new retail into the district that would be attractive to young people, gathering places, to rebuild these historic neighborhoods like the wonderful Bells Hill neighborhood, so that there would be attractive places for people to live in the corridor, and then to create social activity and events to create a sense of place, so concerts in the parks and
I saw Percy Sledge, but I didn't get to see
Percy
Clarence
Sledge, and you know, the soapbox derby and all that kind of activity.
And putting the snow up during the holiday season.
Yeah, having the kids sledding down that hill when it's 70 degrees outside. So it's just been a phenomenal success. That project has attracted now more than $100 million in private investment into that corridor between the campus and downtown, and it's just continuing to blossom and develop, and you know, that's a good illustration of what collaboration in the community can produce, because that's a bottom-up collaborative effort by people that developed a plan, and then people who lived in the neighborhoods worked on fleshing out the plan, and then private investors saw the plan and saw the potential for it and began investing their money into the project. And what you see is the fruits of all that work.
Like my grandma used to say, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
And it's sweet. It's very sweet.
It
Okay, let's go back to athletics. Let's talk about the athletic program, because I think oftentimes one does not realize the role that athletics play, not only at a college, but throughout our community. And I think that you have set a great model, to support the fact that athletics are important, in our community, and it has, in many instances, a positive effect.
Yeah, let me say three things about athletics. One, this is often overlooked, but athletics provide a great learning platform for young people. Young people can learn lessons through participation in athletics that supplement the lessons they're learning in the classroom. Classes taught by folks like you.
Yes, sir.
They can learn how to be where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, when other folks are counting on them, through participation in team sports. They can learn how to persevere when facing adversity, an important lesson for all of us to have in life. They can learn how to lose with grace and get up and fight again the next day, something that we all have to. So I believe in athletics because I believe that if done properly, they can provide great lessons that supplement the lessons the students learn in the classrooms and laboratories. Number two, I think Charles Richardson is a very insightful man, and I think that column you referenced that was in the Sunday paper talked about the role athletics play in building community, because he's right. You go out on Saturday for a college football game, and you see people from every different segment of the community who gather together, people who don't agree on anything on Monday through Friday, but on that day, for those 3 hours, they're all pulling together, and that helps us build community in places like Macon, and it helps us build community at Mercer. And then the final thing, it does raise profile. The day that we beat Duke in the NCAA tournament, second round last year, the #1 Google search term in America that day was Mercer University, with more than 1.4 million people who got on Google and did a search of Mercer University to learn more about Mercer and Macon, because we just beat Duke in basketball. And so in our culture, sports provides great learning opportunities, it builds community, and it raises profile. And it raises profile not just for the university, but for Macon, Georgia. I was watching the U.S. Open Golf Championship, and there was a golfer from Macon, Georgia, playing in the championship. And somebody said, he's from Macon, Georgia. It was Russell Henley. Said, he's from Macon, Georgia. And he said, you remember, that's where Mercer's from, the big dude. So it's good for raising profile.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And so we've got other initiatives. We got the Mercer University initiative. We got the initiative behind the post office complex. And I understand that you're trying to get involved musically downtown with a facility.
Yeah, part of Macon's great heritage is its music heritage. The father of rock and roll was Little Richard. He's from Macon, Georgia. Otis Redding, one of the great musicians of my lifetime, was from Macon, Georgia. Everybody knows about the Allman Brothers making their name here in Macon, Georgia, and Capricorn Records, and Wet Willie, and all the artists that came in.
And when the truth is told, Mr. President, James Brown also.
That's right.
And a lot of people say he's from Augusta. He might have been born in Augusta, but I promise you, he got his start in Macon, Georgia.
Yeah.
He used to date a girl up the street from me in the project. Desi.
Yeah, well, Macon has that great music heritage, and we've got some very talented young musicians in Macon, and we need a place for those young musicians to be able to practice and develop their talents, to interact and engage with other talented young musicians. And so we've got a building we own on 2nd Street, just down the street from the Cox Capitol Theater, that we're looking to convert into a music incubator that'll have practice space, performance space, maybe recording space for these young artists. Because right now what happens in Macon is...
I'm going to interrupt you because I want you to talk about students interested in going to Mercer, you know, because we're going to have a lot of young people who see the show. So, I mean, what about scholarships and jobs, you know, because I'm sure there are a lot of young people who would like to be a part of the Mercer experience. What would you say to them?
Well, I think that's the other reason we're growing. We gave about $50 million in scholarship assistance last year to young people attending Mercer because we want it to be affordable. You can't have the kind of diversity that we insist on, economic diversity, racial diversity, without having financial aid for students from disadvantaged economic backgrounds. So that's very important to us. About $50 million in scholarship assistance given last year to young people. And you look at areas where we're growing. Fastest growing area is engineering. 18% growth in engineering enrollment in 1 year.
Wow.
This year. And why do you suppose young people want to become engineers?
You tell me.
All right, there are a couple of reasons. One, engineers can make things happen. They do amazing things. And number two, they get jobs. Every single one of them gets a job. So that's attractive. Number two growth area, the sciences, biology, chemistry.
Wow.
You know, when people say we don't produce enough young scientists, they're not watching where I sit.
Yeah.
That's our fastest growing area, and it's the same thing. Young people see opportunity to do really meaningful things with their lives through the sciences, and it's a booming area. Number three fastest growing area is the health sciences, people who want to give their lives to the healing professions. And one of the reasons for that is they see great economic opportunity. So
that is so outstanding. I'm so proud and honored and impressed, frankly, with Mercer and its staff and all the collaboration and all of the great things that you're doing in the community. Give us the website just in case one wants to learn more information.
Mercer.edu.
Mercer.edu. You know, and I'm not very smart, but even I can remember that. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Okay, next time, let me interview you.
Well,
I want people to hear your story.
Okay, well, you can do that. Matter of fact, I can hear you now saying this is a call to action. I'm Dr. Bill Underwood. This is a call to action.
A call to action.
I'm your host, Alex Habersham. Have a great day.
www.makingblackpages.com